Hello, podcasters, and welcome once again to Sexplosion. Today, we'll be talking about sexual desire styles with Hippy Steve. Now, the way I met Steve was that he was joining me on my daily lives on TikTok, and he started to help me by answering questions of my audience while I was busy talking. You know what? He was so knowledgeable and helpful in the area of sex and intimacy that I then made him into moderator to help me so he can actually boot people off as well when they're being a bit naughty and distractive. And now I'm inviting him here to join me on Sexplosion. So let me tell you all about him. So Hippy Steve, mostly known as Hippy, was brought up by a far-right cult commune. Once he escaped, he spent many years piecing together the conditioning he experienced and recognizing the similarities with social conditioning. Now working in an unofficial capacity as a trauma-informed coach, helping people recognize and work through trauma and conditioning with special interest in religious and spiritual abuse trauma. So over time, this has led more to working with people breaking free from negative social conditioning, especially around the subject of sex and intimacy, which has been suppressed and demonized since the creation of Christian religions. So he's practiced relationship anarchy since his 20s, which has given him a wide range of sexual experiences over 30 decades. So that's Steve. Now, if you are new to Sexplosion, my name is Caroline Chenier from CarolineChenierCoaching.com. I'm your coach on all things intimacy, sex, and superconsciousness. So, Hippy, a very warm welcome to Sexplosion.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So today's topic, sexual desire styles, is something that has been in the forefront of all my videos and all my lives, because it turns out that men and women don't know sexual desire styles, and it is key to knowing what these are for an intimacy relationship, so in a sexless relationship. So Steve, what are your thoughts on sexual desire styles?
Well, I mean, it's something like, yeah, like you say, it comes up a lot in the lives, but the main thing that seems to come up is that people don't, like you say, people don't know themselves. They don't know what they want, what they like, and they're expecting their partner to give something up, if you like, but they don't even know what they want. And this is like seems to be the root of the problem that we often come up against on the lives is a complete lack of self awareness and self understanding, and people not haven't just stopped and looked at themselves and really thought, what do I like? What do I want? And there's a lot of pressure put on partners from people who don't even know what they want.
No, they
And
don't.
that seems to be a real regular sort of thing that comes up. And when you point this out to people, they tend to go a bit quiet and not want to hear that. I mean, and how to encourage people to look at themselves, is it's a bit of a mystery really, because people are resistant to any idea that it could be them that's a problem, or it's them that needs to deal with something. And I
And
don't.
we notice, don't we, that on a
Hmm,
live, they all log off, don't they? As soon as we talk about the fact that it's something they need to look at themselves about. And
yeah,
just to help our audience here, with one aspect of sexual desire styles is the fact that one is spontaneous and one is responsive. And the spontaneous is easy to describe. It's literally when a man, for example, most men, I mean, not every man, most men are spontaneous, where they'll see something really, a beautiful woman or a beautiful man come past, and that's it, 0 to 100 in a few seconds, right? And they're ready to do it. Whereas responsive is where something sexy has got to happen. So they don't feel like it, but actually they probably really do. All they need is perhaps a little kiss in the ear, a little told that they love you. Because with women, especially, they need the emotional intelligence and they need to feel loved, right? So when a man doesn't know that his wife could be responsive and he's spontaneous and not understand that, then I believe that that is partly what one of the problems is. And so it's not just that. And what you were talking about there is like the man possibly could be pregnant, because what we're talking about, my audience are men, right? And that's why you're here, because you can represent the men very well. And so what could be the issue as well is that they don't discuss this with dating. We're going to talk about sex and dating in the next explosion, but when they're dating, they're both spontaneous, they're both crazy, they're both like rabbits. And then as time goes by, they then become a bit complacent, and then they switch. So he might stay spontaneous, and then she becomes responsive and needs to have a little bit more.
Yeah, but I think also the thing, people who become responsive is because the language, sex is a language. Sex is communication between people. I was going to say two people, but I'm a little bit more open-minded than that in a way.
That's
Um,
good.
but like when let's say it's a couple, right? It should be a language between that couple, between those two people, and it's a language that is communication, and it's generally missing. Yeah, when you're initially there and you got the spontaneous, tearing each other's clothes off, blah. But in that point, there should be communication being built, and quite often it's not, which is where it then drifts off to sometimes nothing after a few months, you
Yeah,
know,
because
because it's not being discussed. It's not being the language, because the language of sex isn't just something that happens in bed. It's something that should happen right the way through the relationship, 24 hours a day. Like your partner's doing the dishes and you just stroke their back. You have an intimate moment with them, not expecting anything in return. That's saved up for later, or it's a text message that's a little bit, suggestive, or, just it's investment and it's communication. And quite often that's when it's if that language is in place all the time, it stays in place. When you get an opportunity where you can have sex, the kids are in bed or you're not working or whatever, then you can do these. It just happens spontaneously. But when the language has dropped off, you've got some work to do to build it, to recreate it. Like,
yeah,
that exciting magic can be kept through a relationship all the way through. I mean, it's building the language that both of you speak, and it's not just like language like words. It's the language in the way that you communicate physically, or just be around each other, or even when you're not around each other, the messages you send,
body
or the
language. Yeah,
yeah, it's a breakdown in communication. I believe that gets it to that. There's people who've been together, remain spontaneous for years, but they've constantly got that language being shared between them of
yeah,
intimacy and affection and sex. You know,
yeah. And the thing is, as well, one of the other things that contributes to um, the sexless relationship and the desire styles is that sex can be bad sex. And when it turns into bad sex, like at first, when it's spontaneous, you kind of go with the flow, don't you? You're
yeah,
just
yeah,
so happy, you're just so excited about the whole relationship. You kind of turn a blind eye to some things that you don't really like. But then what ends up happening is that person keeps doing it because there's the lack of communication, like you're saying, and it
yeah,
ends up that they actually don't want to do it. And so the desire style there is where you're doing what the other person absolutely loves and turns them on, and it's just not doing it. I do remember once, right? I waited 6 weeks for this man to kiss me. I actually thought perhaps he was gay, but he wasn't at all. And eventually he did. It was just horrible. And, it actually, it just, it became like, for me and most women, the kiss is very, very important. And when that doesn't work right, and what I didn't say anything. What I didn't say anything. And you see, this is a common problem because they don't want to hurt the other person.
yeah, yeah. But again, it's like say that you didn't say anything, and it's communication. So it's
Yeah.
finding a way to communicate what you want.
Mm,
There was there was someone a little while ago. I was saying about when there was someone who said to teach them how to kiss you because they didn't like
that's
how they
right.
were
Yeah.
being.
It's on my
And
live,
it
that
and
one.
and it's finding a way to do it that's not
Confrontational.
it's not an attack. This
Yeah.
is just, the way to do it is to go, do you know what I really like? Would you like to know one of my little secrets of what I like? And invite it
It's
rather than
intrigue,
it
isn't
being,
it?
yeah,
And
rather than it being
curiosity.
something wrong. It's, oh, do you want to try this? Because I really like this. And it's a way of inviting people in and giving them the tricks that you've got. And it's all communication. And it seems to be the thing missing from so many
Oh
people's.
my goodness, it is. It is.
But also, though, going back to the lack of sense of self, yeah, because I think people, I've dealt with quite a few people over the years who come to me and have said, oh, the physical side of our relationships failing, and I'm not sure, where it's going to go, rah, rah, rah. And then when you get speaking to them, they've got so many secret, pent up things that they want to sexually express, and they haven't, and they've always thought they never could because it's, oh no, that's too much, oh that's too bad, oh this is too extreme,
Conditioning, isn't it? It's the
and
conditioning.
yeah, and it's there's a lot of shame around sex and sexuality and what people are into, and like I coming from like the upbringing I had where it was extreme, sex should only really be when you're going to make a baby in the dark, in the quiet, it should never be spoken about, and only if you're married and rah rah. When I looked at it, took me quite a while. I had to rewrite what I actually was into and what I believed, and this is how I ended up being a bit where I am, I suppose. Um, and what I worked out was that everything, absolutely everything, as long as it has informed consent, is fine. There is
Yeah.
nothing, there is absolutely nothing that anyone can be into that is wrong, as long as there's consent. That is the only thing. So whatever people are into, if they're feeling too ashamed to talk about it, realize there's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely nothing. People need to get over the idea of shame or fear of being shamed, because there should be no shame. Everything is fine as long as there's consent. There is nothing that anyone can be into that's wrong. Might not be for you,
No.
but you don't have to react negatively to that. You can just say, well, that's not for me. But also, you might want to recognize it might not be for you at that time, but in the future with a different partner or a different time of your life, you might go, oh, actually, I can see that now. I can, get involved with that, because we do change,
Well, that's
and I
exactly
think
what
that
happened
as
to
well.
me. That's
Yeah,
exactly what happened to me, wasn't it? It's like all
yeah,
those years in my 20s and 30s where I didn't allow myself to enjoy it. And then one day I was at my best favorite FB, and I dressed up for him and everything at the front door. I literally had a basque on. I had my feather boa, tarty makeup. My hair was all over the place deliberately, and with my FMB boots, my fucking boots. And I answered the door, and I was just all ready for it, And I was in my favorite position. I remember thinking, I'm just gonna let go. I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna allow myself to enjoy this. What?
yeah,
It was like fireworks. It was incredible. It's like the energy in my body was just but now I know what was going on. It was the energy because of the work I do now. It was the energy
yeah,
that was just exploding like nuclear bombs inside me everywhere. It's
yeah,
incredible. And it was from that moment onwards I realized I was stopping myself with this conditioning that I had as a child.
yeah. That's it, and it's almost like when I'm with women, I generally give them permission. I explain my stance that there's nothing they can say that will shock me, nothing at all, and I've proven that time and time again now. Um, and I give them a safe space with permission to explore their ideas, their fantasies, their feelings, and their thoughts, and communicate it. And I
You are a
communicate mine.
sexual healer. That's what you are. You're a sexual healer.
Well, I don't, I don't know if I give myself the title of that, but it's not something that should be unique to anyone. It's something we should all be doing. And if we can
Yeah.
get to a point of acceptance that everything is fine, everything is acceptable, nothing is of a truth, sense of a taboo or whatever. Everything is on the table. Whatever's said to us, then it becomes a safe space. And
Mm.
within that, we could, there's a lot of work we can do within that because, you know, I could be with a partner who's got very different fantasies and styles of wanting to be than I have, and in that we negotiate and we find compromise to work together, so that we both are enjoying that. But we only get there through communication. And
Yeah.
I think on the lives, the word I type the most is communication.
Yeah. It is,
You
isn't
know,
it?
yeah, the questions that come up from people and I answer it, and it's always there's a way to communicate through that. That's a communication error. There needs to be more communication. And I'm dyslexic, right? And I really struggle to spell, but I can now spell communication really well just from being on the lives.
Amazing. You don't
Yeah,
ever come across as dyslexic. You must have worked very, very hard.
yeah. That
You've
way.
worked very, very hard, full stop.
Auto spell thing helps a lot.
Oh, yeah, it does. But when there's no auto spell, then because I get lost as well. But just to help the audience understand, because you've really come such a long way, and I don't think people quite will realize quite how far you've come. Because did you not say to me that you weren't even allowed to think about anything sexy when you were young, when you were a
Yeah,
child?
yeah, yeah, everything, all of it as a teenager. I mean, I remember my mum screaming in my face, if you even think about sex, then it's a sin, and you're bringing demons into not just you, but the whole home and the family home. Yeah, no, it was pretty dark. It was all very off the cards. I mean, not saying I didn't break the rules and sin like hell there, but
But it's a
but
natural need, isn't it? It's a natural
yeah, I
feeling.
mean, it's a physical need. I mean, the Harvard University proven that if a man ejaculates more than 21 times a month, his chances of prostate cancer are reduced to almost nothing.
Wow.
That was that's Harvard University came up with this, and the less that a man ejaculates, the more chance he has of getting prostate cancer. Right? That's proven by a university, a science thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and it's natural. And, I mean, like my parents used religion as a reason that it wasn't a good thing. And I believe, I spend quite a bit of time talking with people who've been involved in religion, who've got that conditioned idea in their mind, helping them find a way out of it because it is natural. The
Helping who
whole,
get out of it? Your parents?
no, they'll never get out of
Oh, right. They're
it.
still in it, are they?
Yeah, no, but other people that I know that have been indoctrinated into the religious ways and whatever, like, getting over guilt and explaining that, sex is healthy and natural and something to be enjoyed and explored, like,
Mm.
So,
So,
even people that haven't been, our society's still conditioned heavily by the religious influence.
yes.
We might be third generation atheist family, but society as a whole is still, oh, sex is naughty, sex is, and where has that come from? It's come from the really strict, overbearing religious influence over the last, especially since Christianity came out, and then Islam and that followed, and that there's lots of rules about sex, and then there's lots of dogma around sex, and it's had a big influence on society. And we're at a point now where, I think society has become intellectual enough to actually look beyond that and go, no, we are, this is all healthy, natural. Everyone pretty much has sex, and it should be a conversation that we have to help grow and develop and
You're
help
right.
each other.
And one of the things that I'd like to talk about in another episode of Sexplosion is ethical non-monogamy, because you see that's still up for these men that my clients and the ones that contact us in the lives and all the comments and in my DMs and everything that are in a sexless relationship. When they try to, they're probably not saying it the right way. I know there's one in particular who has said it in the right way. He's a very, very sensible man, and the wife is just not having anything. She's not having any of it, and it's
Yeah.
just because of conditioning. That's it. To let them, if they don't want any, okay, that's fine for them. They're getting what they want. Although with menopause, it's something different again. But
Yeah,
if
yeah. I
they,
mean, I think when you get into menopause or medication or physical illness or whatever, then there's a different level of negotiating. But when it's like, say, an asexual partner
yeah,
who's with a non-asexual partner, then there has to be negotiation there because it's not fair
definitely.
on the other partner. You know, especially if you've agreed and you've gone into the relationship going, all right, you never want sex, therefore I will never, we won't have sex and I'm happy with it. Then could you renegotiate? Yeah. If you get to a point where you're like, actually, I'm finding this harder, but again, it's communication, isn't it? You know,
Yes, of course. You just have to keep
but,
talking, don't you?
but yeah, when I think it comes down to some people have a level of control, ownership, and possessiveness when they're like, I don't want it, and I don't want you having it.
It's
That's
not
not love.
right. No,
That's
it's
not
not.
love.
It's control.
Love is about wanting to watch your partner grow, right? And even if a partner grows away from you, if you love them and they're thriving, you're going to be happy because they're thriving, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, okay, they might go off for someone else. Well, if they're happy and you love them, then let it be because they're not a possession. But yeah, I have quite, I don't have, my views on relationships aren't about ownership and possession. They're very much based in growth of two people and helping each other
Well,
grow.
that's
So yeah,
correct. That's
yeah,
correct, isn't it, Hippie? So
yeah,
the interesting thing is that you were just saying then about the woman and the man having a conversation about asexuality, right? What if they're not realizing they're asexual when they go into the relationship? Because many people start to realize things about themselves when they get to about 35 to 40. And what if they've gone into this relationship and they just don't want sex and they've not realized actually that they're asexual?
yeah,
Maybe seeing some of my videos and maybe seeing other videos, they think, oh my God, that's what I am. So when it gets to that kind of situation where they actually don't even realize they're asexual, that's really hard, isn't it? Because it looks like you're
yeah,
withholding sex, but actually it's just because you're just not made that way.
yeah. But again, it comes down to honesty and communication. You see, right, communication, right, here we go, honesty. Communication's fine, right? And it's great to have all of it. But honesty starts with the self. You can't be honest with someone else until you've been honest with yourself. And people always need to look at themselves and say, what do I want? What
Mm.
do I need? What do I like? And they have to be honest about it. And, you know, like going back to what I said earlier about people who um, have desires that they're hiding away from, they're not being honest with themselves. You know, it's just whatever's in there, if it's turning you on, accept it, you know,
Yes, that's
right?
it.
As long as there's consent.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, accept it and just, you know, and go with it and explore that because that's what's working for you. That's what it is. Don't feel guilt or shame. Everyone has these things. I've yet to have someone come to me with something and maybe like, oh, I've never heard of that before. You know, it's like it's always just like, yeah, that's common. Yeah, you know, I mean, and you see it in the lives and people going, yeah, but what about when I want this? Yeah, it's quite common because it is. You know, everyone, you know, most people have got a kink or a idea or a thought that isn't how the church would like to see it, should we say? You know,
Mm.
and it's healthy. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all good. You know, but it's yeah, honesty starts with the self before you know if you want, before you can approach your partner and say, I want more intimacy, or, you know, I want more sex, or whatever, you have to go, what is it that I want? What is it that I like? And know that about yourself and feel confident in it. And I think for some people, it helps speak to people like yourself or myself to just to wear that, just to speak it out. You know, it's talking therapies around these subjects and it helps people accept themselves. It's a part of
Yeah.
ourselves that we reject and quite often, all too often, feel guilty about that. You know. Well, so when all right, when I say consent, I'm it sounds like anything goes and everything's on the table, but consent is actually it's a narrow title. It's enthusiastic, informed consent. So people who are drunk, people who are high on drugs, people who are mentally incapacitated in any way, children, these people cannot give informed, enthusiastic consent. They might be saying yes, it is not consent because they're not of a mind to be able to give consent. You know,
Right.
it doesn't matter what someone's saying. It's if they're not in a position to give in an informed consent, then it's no. you have to just no.
And the
Yeah.
enthusiastic bit, explain the enthusiastic bit for the listeners.
Not being persuaded, not
Right.
being coerced, manipulated, guilt tripped into something. It has to be, yes, I want this, and
Be
it has to,
excited to do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and that's really important. You know, as much as I
Wow.
say, with consent, everything's on the table. It's with informed, enthusiastic consent.
So, what I want to just finish off with, because it comes to the end now, is to
Yeah.
finish off with is first of all, it's been brilliant conversation because you always add a lot more to a conversation from a man's point of view. It's great to actually hear what you say, which is so fair from a man's voice, so man's mouth. So that's really good. So I really appreciate that. And what I want to ask you now is my last question is um, if you could talk to the young 18-year-old you again, what would you advise?
Ah, leave Wales earlier. There was no work and no money. It was hard. No, what would I advise? Be more confident in my understanding of everything with consent is acceptable and run with it. It took me a lot of years to put to. It's one thing having the understanding, but it was another thing moving it into my soul, if you know what I mean. So yeah, probably run with that a lot sooner. Just have confidence in that. Yeah.
Your upbringing was so strict with not even being allowed to think about sex or touch yourself or anything like that, and to have come out of all that and removed those limiting beliefs and got out of your own self to be able to experience what your parents were so hard on you for to experience. It must have been such hard work for you.
It was a journey, yeah, but it's a journey I'm glad I've made because I've had a lot of really fucking amazing sex. I've had a lot of amazing times with a lot of amazing people,
Yeah,
and
but you
yeah,
wouldn't be able to do the work you're doing now if you hadn't have done that, right? If you
yeah, definitely, yeah, no, definitely, it set me up on a path to understanding how it works within us all, you know, within everyone, you know,
yeah.
whether that conditioning societal or religious or whatever. It's something that yeah, and I enjoy guiding people into
Do
the
you know that's
freedom.
exactly what I was going to ask you to talk about is the guiding bit because I remember you telling me once that you really listen, you ask the right questions to the woman to find out what she likes, and then you actually implement that. The amount of men that don't do that is incredible.
No,
Explain that.
it's yeah, it's something. It's hard to explain why people don't do it because to me it's just natural, you know.
Mm,
Like finding if you're gonna have sex with someone because I don't really, you know, I might sound like I'm just a, you know, a right tart and I'm out having it all the time. I don't generally have one nighters too often. I prefer to have friends, and if it's safe to build a sexual side to that friendship, then fine, you know, we'll do that and we'll explore it. But I want it to be good, so I want to know them. I want to know what makes them tick, what turns them on, and you know, and like quite often I find myself having to help them find it themselves because they haven't looked because you know it's just not the way our society's been working for a long time. But I think yeah, I think it's something we can all work towards, definitely, you know.
yeah.
And having great sex. I mean, yeah, it's the only time we get to live this one life. You know, we might reincarnate. I don't know. None of us know. But this life, this is it. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is the only time we get to do it. And if communication brings about a better way of enjoying it and you know, to a higher standard and higher levels, then we should do it. You know, and I think that's quite important.
Definitely. And I just want to pick
Yeah.
up on one thing you said just then, and that is that the woman doesn't even know what she wants, right? That you
Yeah.
encourage that, you encourage her to find out. And
Yeah, to
what
look,
yeah,
but it's providing a safe space with no judgment. That's
yeah.
what gives her the opportunity to look at it herself and go, oh, actually, there is this. Oh,
Mm.
actually, there is that. And when it's not met with, oh my God, or you know, horror or shock or disgust or anything, and it's met with, oh yeah, cool, that's fine. then and it's the same with men. I think if we, if men could speak to women and feel safe in doing it, it's all about safety. Do we feel
Yeah.
safe? And both partners have to make help their partners feel safe, creating a safe environment between them.
Yeah.
And I think when that isn't there, it says a lot more about the relationship in general, rather than just the sexual side. If couples aren't best friends who can share everything openly and safely, what are they?
No, you're quite right. Absolutely right. And you know what? I've got on one of the early editions of Sexplosion, I had my friend who organizes sex parties. And she part of that was organizing sex parties, but for women to have a safe space to explore themselves like they've never
Yeah.
explored themselves before. I mean, many women haven't even put a mirror down their team and look at what they look like
Mate,
down there.
the number of people who don't even masturbate is, I find, I've been looking at, there's various studies and it's always, varying numbers, but it's actually it's a lot higher than it should be. And if you don't know your own body, how can you expect your partner to know your body? If you
Exactly.
can't celebrate yourself when you're alone, then you, it's an impossible mission for your partner,
It
and then
is.
and I hear lots of people. I've come across quite a few times in my life, and it always horrifies me every time where the man says that I don't want my woman to masturbate. It's like she's cheating, mate. That's just gnarly, and the woman needs to run away from that immediately.
Mm.
That's abuse. No, we should all be. Everyone should be enjoying their bodies. We've got pleasure zones built in on purpose by nature, and we should be enjoying them. I made some notes, right? And in there, I was talking about like the energetic, right? Because people work on different levels at different times, and there's some people can work purely on the energetic, and these people can like achieve orgasm without touch. It's just from the tease and
Yeah.
the anticipation and whatever, and and like if you if I can get there, what's it, tantra, you know you can work with your partners with this, but you have to communicate your way there, but it is a thing that can happen, and then you've got like, so the sensual thing where people are, it's more like what you see as romantic. It's setting the scene and the smells and the lighting and everything else of building, yeah, building an atmosphere, and gentle touches, and this is, if this is what your partner wants, work with it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like, when you work with your partner in what they like, you get amazing results, and that works across the sexes both ways. And people, I think for a lot of men, right, and I'm a man, so I don't really want to be dissing men, but I'm going to have to. A lot of men, apparently, from what I can gather, see their wife as a wet wank and then wonder why she doesn't want to have sex with them. They don't invest. They think foreplay is just like, oh, she's wet enough now. No, foreplay is meant to start when you come until the next time. It's meant to be an ongoing thing. Tease your woman, flirt with her, make her feel good. It's investment. You don't expect your car to work without putting fuel in it and servicing it and looking after it. It's going to break down, isn't it? But yeah,
That's
but
exactly what's happened, isn't it, with these
yeah,
relationships? It's just broken
with a lot
down.
of people, like, but then there's also like, a lot of people, moving away from like, the sensual and the energetic, we've got like the kinky side of things, which is sensation based, whether it's, like impact play or the feeling of ropes or whatever. But the other side of kink is, it's not all just ropes and chains and, dungeons and basements. I think the bigger part of it is the mental, the psychological element. Again, you back into tease maybe, but it's with power, it's submission, and someone taking authority and control of a situation. And that's a really powerful dynamic. And if people are into that, there's loads of resources online for looking into how to do it properly. Not 50
Mm.
Shades of Grey. That should be like erased from the history of the earth. It was the worst representation of BDSM in history.
Yeah, do you know
Um,
but just before you carry on, if I could just say one thing there, as you've spoken about that, is
yeah,
that I never read the rest of the book. I just read the bit up to he took her to the room, right? Because
yeah,
that was a massive tease, wasn't it? He just would
Yeah,
not.
the
Right.
build and anticipation, yeah,
Yes,
really,
and
really
I
powerful. Yeah,
say, every single man should read just that beginning part to show what the woman needs. That's the foreplay, that's the tease.
yeah.
But the rest of it, you're right. I mean, I watched the film afterwards, and it was like I really didn't like it very much, because it was a bit violent, and she didn't want it. So it wasn't consensual, was it?
Yeah, no, there
Or
was a lot wrong.
enthusiastic.
There was a lot wrong with it all, but yeah, but no, there's so there's so many different elements to sex to be expressed, and but yeah, learn communicating together and not being afraid to say, I don't know about that. We
Mm,
don't, no, we're not taught sex in school. We're taught biology, but we're not taught sex. And if people are learning sex from the playground in school, which is when it's, generally talked about, and girls are going, ooh, at the slightest suggestion of anything, every girl that's present goes, oh, that must be wrong. It's ooh. And it's taken into their
mm.
minds that all these things are ooh. So learning to say, I don't know, or I'm unsure. And that, men who's, we've not had lessons, or very few men have had lessons, and to say, I don't know about that, I'm not sure. If it's communicated within a couple dynamic, say, at that point, they can go on the internet and they can learn together and express and saying, oh, I really like that, or I don't quite like that. Those little things you can build off it. And yeah, all right, it's an investment. You might not have immediate amazing sex, but in a couple of months or 6 months or a year or whatever, when you've been working on this together, you're going to be having really good sex.
Yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day, was it?
Yeah, and
Takes practice.
it's not a race, and it takes time and it takes communication, and within that is trust. But I think if a couple who aren't having sex start to discuss these things, well, I like this and I like this, and it's accepted in a safe space, then it can build over time until the whole of the relationship benefits from that because the communication's higher, the intimacy is higher, and they look forward to seeing each other, and they're not like, oh, I'm going to spend an extra hour in the gym because I can't be asked to deal with her, and or I'm just going to keep cleaning the shoe cupboard as something to do, so I'm not in there with him. All of these lame things that people actually do can become, they're just like, no, I want to be with them. I want to be talking with them. I want to be sharing my secrets and my ideas. And yeah, sex can be very, very healing.
Of course it can.
And yeah, it's a worthwhile investment. I love it.
Definitely, definitely. I'm all for it as well. You're a breath of fresh air, Steve. You really are. So listen, thank you so, so much
No,
for
thanks for letting me waffle.
oh no, it's been amazing having you here. Thank you so much. So come back for more of the unscripted, interesting conversations here. Thank you all so much for tuning in. See you next month. To your success, I'm out.